Thank you, friend. Shabbat shalom. Greetings to you all. Let me ask you all a question. Now, what's your favorite book of the Torah? Now, it is a difficult question because the books are all so different. Because so many love stories. Many love Genesis. You know, it's got the power of cosmic creation. It's got the most famous stories of them all. And certainly for many, if not most, it tends to be the favorite. Now, the least favorite amongst almost everybody is Leviticus, the book of priestly instruction. It is really only one story, and of course, it's a story of death and destruction. And it's a book many famous rabbis believed should be the starting point of study because it's a religious handbook. It's full of liturgy and rules, and that's what it was meant to be. Now, Numbers is the incredible journey of the wilderness generation, a generation that stands alone in the annals of history. Deuteronomy. It's a great Reader's Digest highlights and reminder of most of what came before. So if you never saw the other books of the Bible your whole life, it gave you highlights of all you need to know. And its history is fascinating. The once lost and then found mysterious book of the Bible. And then there's Exodus, the book of names, the one we now begin. Now this week it's my favorite. In the book of names, we learn the name of only one individual, and we learn what we need to know in order to live a perfect life. Now, the change from the book of the beginnings, Genesis, to the book of names, Shemot, initiates this great week of change in which we begin to understand the story of freedom. As this week heralds the greatest modern political demonstration of freedom as we see the transition of power as determined by the free will of the people, to a man whose name everyone has known for decades, talking about a book of names. Now, it marks a testament to freedom, not to individuals, not to parties, not to philosophy. It is truly a great thing to be able to observe, and we should be grateful for the freedom we enjoy to uphold and observe such a tradition. And this would be a great time to take a moment to express gratitude, renew spirit, and energy, and take time to be thankful for all the miracles of our lives, our health in particular, our happiness, our families and friends, and the great love that envelops us and everyone we know, and let us share that with those in need. Send out energy to help those heal, those in need of healing and renewal at this time of hope, of peace, of light. Sending goodwill, love, peace, and thanks is such an easy thing to do, to transmit energy to everybody you know in need. It's easy. Call out the names for whoever you know, for Dawn, for Linda, for Wayne, for Rosemary, for Paris, for Kelly, the bee. So think of those in need and call out healing for them, the kindness, healing wishes, goodwill, and love you all send out. Circles the world finding those in need. So thank you, each of you, and continue to send out healing energy to everybody you can. Berech Avoteinu Makor HaBracha Limotenu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Let us say Amen, Mishaberach, let us all have our spirits renewed. Now this week, my friends, we turn a page and begin the second book of the 5 books of Moses. And the name of the first parsha, like the book, is Shemot, the names. An amazing title that actually tells volumes about the theme of this book, even though in English we call it Exodus, and we see that as the theme. And Exodus and names just don't kind of sound like they'd be about the same thing. Well, the book that began with an image of God's breath moving across the vast expanses of the primordial deep to bring the world and all life into being, ended last week with the image of a body in a box, a mummy in a coffin. And out of the contraction of this moment of mortuary enclosure, a new expansion and new births follow. Exodus begins with a proliferation of births, a pointed repetition of the primeval blessing to be fruitful and multiply. And just as the survival of the flood was represented as a second creation, the leader who is to forge the creation of the nation will be born on the water in a little box, not the Aron, the coffin of the end of Genesis, but the Tavah, the ark that keeps Noah and his seed alive. That is the word for the basket in which the infant is placed, Tavah, a box, the same word used for Moses as used for Noah's ark. And it's the only place in the Bible where this word is used in these two instances. And so there's a connection between Moses and Noah. Now, this is a book in which a hero has no name. I know you think his name's Moses. He has no name. In which a king has no name. In which a god discloses his name, and that name has a very specific meaning. A book of names that forces you to think about what names do. And what names do is they give identity. What's your name, little girl? What's your name? Shooting you straight, little girl, won't you do the same? What's your name? We put so much in names. Now, there's so much in this parsha. From the birth of Moses to his going to Midian and getting married, seeing the burning bush, meeting God for the first time, who tells Moses his name. Moses returned to Egypt, the lesson of learning to make bricks without straw. It's another parsha where you can say, what do you talk about? In any year, any of those could make a whole year's worth of discussions and lectures and lessons. So, as we read this parsha, we're familiar with the stories, beginning with a story we all know so well, the baby in the basket sealed with bitumen cast in the river, the mercy of its currents to be found and raised before taking its place in destiny. And there is actually an ancient writing that tells this story, and it's autobiographical. My mother conceived me. In secret she bore me. She set me in a basket of rushes with bitumen. She sealed my lid. She cast me into the river which rose over me. The river bore me up, carried me to Aki, the drawer of water. Aki, the drawer of water, took me as his son and reared me. Now, when the Torah was put together, this story was familiar to everybody. But this was not the written story of Moses. This was the autobiography of Sargon, the great Akkadian king who ruled Assyria in the 24th century before the Common Era, so like 1,000 years or more before Moses. Now, the stories of Sargon, of Moses, of the Hindu king Karna, also placed in a basket on a river, and even of Oedipus, a royal baby left to die on a mountain and found and raised by shepherds, have made fascinating studies. They point to a certain kind of journey that each of these people found themselves on. And this book marks the embarkation of the people on a journey where most of the story that we are going to read from this time forward takes place in a very strange land. It is the land of the wilderness. And the wilderness has far greater meaning than just the desert, which is how we probably just conceive of it because of Exodus being in the desert. Now, the wilderness is where Moses, where David, where John the Baptist, where Jesus, where Siddhartha Gautama, and where Mohammed all journeyed on their roads to become enlightened. And believe it or not, friends, each of you has been there. We picture it, of course, from this story as the desert, but the wilderness is far more than that. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no pain. Well, this is true. The desert of Moses is the wilderness we all go through on our way to spiritual enlightenment. The only one to give us pain is ourselves. And that comes from our fears. The opening of Exodus, with its reiteration of the death of Joseph, is not the story of the end of Joseph at all. It is a literary device to catapult us 400 years in the future, when Bnei Yisrael no longer means the sons of Israel, but now means a people. Joseph has died, as have many generations. We are told the Pharaoh who knew Joseph is gone. Well, he's been gone for hundreds of years. But when you read it, you think, well, it's like the next Pharaoh. Well, no, this is like 400 years later. And you will notice that at the beginning of the story, Pharaoh is referred to several times as the king of Egypt, rather than by his Egyptian title or name, which was used in Genesis and will become his set designation as the story goes on. Now, this has the effect of casting him as the archetype evil king. In this case, the one who kills babies, and a folklore confrontation between the forces of good and of evil. Right now, Moses, who grows up royal, has to return to his roots. He kills and flees Egypt because he upholds the moral good. And the moral law is something that will be interspersed in ritual law, civil law, ethical law, in everything he brings to the people. And this becomes the setup for his marriage and his path of return. Now, the betrothal type scene of the young woman encountered at the well in a foreign land, which in the instances of Rebekah and Isaac and of Rachel and Jacob were full of inklings of the character and future relationship of the two people involved, here undergoes a certain shift. Aspects of Moses' subsequent career as a national leader are foreshadowed, but there are no indications about his future relationship with Zipporah, and her character is not in the least at issue. In fact, here the young woman at the well is multiplied into 7 young women, Zipporah and her 6 sisters, a move that diminishes her individuality while recasting the encounter between the future spouses as a meeting between one man and 7 maidens, the sanctified formulaic number. Now, what's of interest about the character of Moses is what bears on his qualities as a leader: his impassioned sense of justice, his easily ignited temper, his selfless compassion, his feeling of personal inadequacy. Alone among biblical characters, he's actually assigned an oddly generic appellation: the man Moses. The man Moses remains somewhat distanced from us, so that we never get the sense of intimate acquaintance with his inner life and his distinctive traits of personality that we are afforded in the stories of Jacob and Joseph. We never really get to know him. Also notice that God in Genesis walks about the earth looking very much like a man, indeed being easily mistaken for a man until he chooses to reveal his identity. And at some points, engaging human beings, what is clearly represented as face-to-face conversation. God in Exodus has become essentially unseeable, overpowering, and brilliantly shining. God spoke to Abraham face-to-face in what appears to be human form. Here he speaks from fire. And even that Moses is afraid to look on. Barriers to access accompany God everywhere from this point on, just as they'll be instituted architecturally in the 3-way structure of the sanctuary that he's going to be ordering the Israelites to build. So the story now is shifted, and it's a story that applies to each of us still. It's a story that unfolds in 3 separate places: Egypt, the place of bondage; Mitzrayim, confinement, where our fears are created and take root and grow; the wilderness, a space of boundaries where freedom will be realized and new obligations occurred, where we learn to overcome the fears of our lives, and where a tense struggle between leader and people will play out as part of the formulation of independence and nationhood. And then the third is the promised destination of the Exodus from Egypt, the promised land, milk and honey, the one that remains beyond the horizon of the book, and possibly just beyond the horizon of so many of us. And so names here are just not that important. In fact, some of the most memorable characters of our generation are characters who had no name. First and foremost, Clint Eastwood comes to mind, who catapulted to stardom as the man with no name. Another famous one was Patrick McGoohan, The Prisoner. He had a number and no name. It made us all think of the government reducing us all to a mere number. And so now in the book of names, we have no names. We do not know who was Pharaoh. He had no name. It's not important. Even the name of Moses is fascinating because we're never really told it. Exodus 2:10. And she named him Moses because I drew him from the water. Well, I think we want that to be true because it explains a strange Egyptian name to the man who was the true founder of Judaism. But friends, it just might be a biblical Hebrew stretch to get that connection. We relate it to the Hebrew verb mashah, to draw. Moses, however, was an authentic Egyptian name, meaning the one who was born, and hence son. And often it was used in a royal name to mean true son. And many pharaohs were named with Moses as part of their name. Tuthmos, or Amos, or Kamos, true son of. So there'd be no question that person's right to royalty and rulership. Now, interestingly enough, there is one Hebrew use of Moshiach, a name, used to refer to God meaning my deliverer, which can be found in Isaiah 43:11. Anoki Yahweh we'en mibal adei Moshiach. I am the Lord, beside me there is no deliverer. And that's not to be confused with a word that we'll see subsequently, Meshiach, which means anointed, and which was associated with a king or a high priest. Remember, friends, names were descriptive. Yitzhak, he will laugh. Yaakov, he will grab the heel. Israel, he who wrestles with God. Moses, a true son and deliverer. Now, in the book of names, we learn only one name, and yet we never speak it. And accordingly, we forget that it too has a meaning. And we get the hint that something huge is about to happen, because right before this reveal of the name, in Exodus 3:4, and God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, here I am. Well, there's that life-altering warning, that double name calling. Moses' life will never be the same now. Exodus 3:13, Moses asks God's name, and the divine name is revealed. God said to Moses, you shall say this to the children of Israel, Yahweh, your father's God, Abraham's God, Isaac's God, and Jacob's God, has sent me to you. That is my name forever. This is how I am to be remembered for generation after generation. Yahweh, Yud, He, Vav, He, the four-letter name. We say Adonai. We don't even say, the name. Now, Yahweh, Yud, He, Vav, He, was a third-person verb whose root meaning is to be. It is in the imperfect tense, and so it cannot be limited to a past, present, or future time. And so biblical man would have understood it to mean he causes to be, or he who brings things into being. What a great name. It conveys an amazing identity, right? But we don't even say the name, so we automatically change it. So we don't realize that there's meaning behind that name. And God says, this is what I'm to be known as forever. He who causes to be, or he who brings things into being. I think it's a fantastic description of God. You know my name. Better look up my number. You know my name. That's right. Look up my number. That's one of my favorite Beatles songs. The flip side of Let It Be, You Know My Name. And what a great song that is. Well, God tells Moses and us what is going to happen. And notice it tells us a lot about identity. Exodus 3:19. And I am my part, no, the king of Egypt will not let you go, except through a strong hand. And I will send out my hand and strike Egypt with all my wonders that I shall do in his midst, and afterward he will send you out. But I, on my part, shall toughen his heart, and he will not send the people away. Now God has just said he will harden Pharaoh's heart and not allow Pharaoh to send the people away. So you never know just who is enslaved. The world is sacred. And so is everything in it. Express your gratitude, light a candle, make a wish, celebrate your life and the lives of those you love. Share your feelings with them. Live free, be free, honor your freedom. Be well, be happy, and be blessed. Share and honor the light and all who live in the light and continue to shine. Continue to send everybody you know goodwill and love. Pray for peace and freedom for everyone, and end to terror and hatred. Remember, friends, we are a community. We learn together. We celebrate each other. We love each other. We share this right together, men and women equally. Let us send out love, not fear. Send out peace, harmony, good healing to all who need it. Please do learn to forgive, learn to love. Open your hearts and honor the relationships of your life. Tell those you love that you love them. Take advantage of the time you have. Enjoy the journey. We take twists and turns in the patterns that weave through the fabric of our lives and our efforts to grow, to learn, to be, to love. So please do love. Send healing, goodwill, and love to all who need it. Share your holiness. Now bless you all. Have a fantastic week, a week of love and light, a week of peace and healing. For you to honor the people of your life and honor the journey you are on and honor yourself. Friends, keep your eyes open. What you may not be seeing, keep your ears open and listen to the world around you. And remember, this is an organic book. The lessons, the laws, the ethics, the ritual, they change with the times. It's how it stays current, relevant, new, meaningful. Continues to provide us with insight, with answers. Remember, we do set in motion all that happens in our lives, our intention, our cause, our effect. Everything is linked. As I've said, you always have time to forgive and to be forgiven. You have that knowledge of what is good and bad. So acknowledge what you've done wrong to yourself, to God, to any other person you've wronged, and then ask forgiveness. And do so with sincerity, accountability, vulnerability. Forgive those who've hurt you and be forgiving and be compassionate. Do not stop your journey. Do not stop moving towards your promised land. It's in sight. Keep on dreaming, keep on being, keep sharing, keep shining, keep teaching. Keep spreading your holiness. Do not follow fear, follow love. It is always in front of you. And remember to have faith, an unwavering adherence to principle, just as I have faith in the principle of love and all of you. And in my blessing for you once again, act with purity of heart and mind, despising none, defrauding none, hating none, cherishing all, honoring every child of God, every creature of the earth. May all peoples know peace in this year, and may you nurture kindness and love everywhere. Well, we are going to be traveling the wilderness together, my friends. We will help each other along the way. The ocean is a desert with its life underground and the perfect skies above. Under the cities lies a heart made of granite, but the humans will give no love. The humans will give no love. Now, that's a reminder of Genesis 6, that God regretted making man because he has evil in his heart. Throw away that evil, my friend. Give love. Embrace love, not fear. Forgiveness, not anger. Be there for someone because someone is always there for you, whether you know it or not. Be happy, be healthful, be helpful, be kind, be loving. Tell everybody you can. Now, I look forward to seeing you all next time. Shabbat shalom and blessings to you all. Have a great week. Take care. Bye.